This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about Bitcoin Core 30, of course, and I'm begging Bitcoin Core as an organization, please do not release this software. It looks like it's still on schedule for release on Friday, which is October 10th. We can see there are 15 downvotes here and 22 upvotes. I was hoping to wake up this morning and see this had changed, but it looks like it's still going to be released on Friday unless we have some sort of divine intervention at this point. I'm asking Bitcoin Core, please just do the right thing and either delay the release or don't uncap data carrier size. Now, what makes Bitcoin Core 30 especially disruptive to the Bitcoin network and to Bitcoiners as a whole? There's a guy named Nick Szabo. You may have heard of him. He writes here, up until Core version 30, Bitcoin has never had a feature intentionally designed to host non-financial content. It's a very important point, and he summarizes it so well. Bitcoin only had financial features hijacked to hold non-financial content, like using bare pub keys or using the inscriptions hack, for example. Nick writes here, it's a very well-publicized increase in the op return allowance that very publicly invites more non-financial data onto Bitcoin. Even though apps can already put data in other parts of Bitcoin, this increase sends a signal inviting more such data. This is what we call rolling out the red carpet to spammers and non-financial data. Nick goes on to write, without adding safeguards to allow archival node operators to non-disruptively delete illegal content for which they will often be held criminally liable. It's a very important point, and he compares it to the original Usenet in this tweet. In particular, in most P2P systems, such as the original Usenet, you can usually delete particular content, for example, in response to a court order, without disrupting the rest of the content or functionality of the network. This is not possible in archival nodes as currently designed. So if you're running a full node that has all the history going back to 2009. Satoshi Nakamoto here writes, I think I've heard of him too, the total cost of that quote-unquote spam is greater than its price in the fee. Quote, the question isn't whether spam can outbid me. The question is the infrastructure cost that spam forces the entire ecosystem to pay. Again, spam and CSAM is a tragedy of the commons. Every transaction, whether spam or an essential payment, Nick responds this. And the biggest cost of the spam isn't the volume, it's the legal and moral risks that come with arbitrary non-financial content, which are far larger, far less predictable, and far less manageable by the Bitcoin legal community than the legal and moral risks from merely arbitrary financial transactions. Nick goes on to write, financial law risks are a far narrower set of legal threats, and the Bitcoin community has a large group of lawyers and lobbyists to deal with them. We have next to no expertise in dealing with a wide variety of legal risks that come with a wide variety of arbitrary content, and this is why we don't want to turn the Bitcoin network into a network for arbitrary content. Nick writes in the next tweet, some jurisdictions have strict liability. He's talking about CSAM. If it's on your machine, you're liable, period. In some other jurisdictions, the key factor is knowledge. If one opens an email and sees it, one is legally obligated to delete it. If one is informed about its presence, even if one did not see it oneself, one is obligated to delete it. Maintaining known CSAM or CP is a criminal offense, and transmitting to others, as nodes would do, is often a further greater offense. For example, if a node operator was given notice of CSAM or CP on his node, he'd in most jurisdictions be legally obligated to delete it or face prosecution. If he couldn't delete it without disrupting the financial functionality of his node, he'd have to shut down the node to comply with the law. Caveat, I'm not a lawyer. This shows how horrific and how dangerous this attack is, because this could set the precedent for people being forced to shut down their nodes. And so this really is an attack on the Bitcoin network. That's why I've been calling Bitcoin Core 30 malware. Bitcoin Maniac writes here, if law enforcement know of an existing peer-to-peer network where CSAM is being distributed freely, they will take action. Number one, list all ClearNet Bitcoin node addresses. Number two, acquire user home addresses from ISPs, internet service providers. Number three, raid said home and prosecute node owner for CSAM distribution. This is quite sobering to think what may be coming down the pike here. And this is all going to happen if Bitcoin Core 30 goes ahead and releases this. If you're finding this video interesting so far, I'll pause really briefly here to just ask you to help to support the channel. Hit the subscribe button, that does really help. Leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video, and share this video with a friend or family member. In this post, I write, have Bitcoin Core devs consulted a good lawyer? This is not FUD. By releasing Core 30, they may be wading into a true morass. I won't be donating to their legal fund after the stuff hits the fan, since we've been warning them for months and they've attacked the messenger. You core devs are the ones pushing through a highly contentious and dangerous update here, uncapping data carrier size. You've merged this awful pull request and may actually be stupid enough to ship it on Friday. I and many others have been responding to your foolish actions for months. Some of the people for years, even before I was fighting this battle, been responding to your foolish actions for months or years by warning you about what could happen if this malware actually ships and is widely used. This update is going to hurt many Bitcoiners, including possibly you core devs. And I want to go on the record already here saying I'll take zero joy in that. I'll do what I can to help you, but no, not donating to your legal fund, because I've been trying to raise awareness of this, as have so many other good people. When you say it's all my fault or Mechanic's fault or Luke's fault for somehow wishing bad things to happen to core devs, all I can think of is this picture where core devs are the bicyclists. And so if people get upset by a tweet like this, I want to explain the context for it. This is a self-inflicted wound that Bitcoin Core is doing to itself. As Beautyon writes here, the worst thing about this is that they know in advance that it will happen with exactly the change they're trying to bring in thanks to BSV. So the same thing happened to BSV when OpReturn was uncapped in 2018, 2019. Beautyon goes on to write, they, meaning Bitcoin Core devs, will not be able to claim in a court that they didn't know this outcome would occur as a defense. States prosecutors will say they were warned many times in public and knew it would happen, and therefore it's criminally negligent and contributory. If this is even theoretically a risk, the smart move for them, for Bitcoin Core devs, and other people related to this release, is to delay the release of Core 30 until they have airtight legal assurance that they cannot be held responsible for the uses users put Core 30 to. Clearly, they haven't taken a consultation from a law firm saying they're immune from prosecution. These appeal to authority types would have published the legal opinion saying they're categorically immune. But then there's Tornado and Samurai isn't there, showing that developers but then there's Tornado and Samurai isn't there, showing that developers are held responsible for the acts of their users, and this is happening even under the Trump administration. It's a slam dunk, in other words, prosecuting Bitcoin Core devs, as Beautyon saying here. It's a slam dunk, and this alone should cause these people to pause and wash their hands of this tawdry scandal that has now been fully exposed. As Eric Jens writes here, stupid to faffo on this. Even if they think they're in the clear, they know there's precedent for dev prosecution when the state disagrees. Is every single global jurisdiction just not going to care at all? Their defense is going to suffer, as they've been repeatedly warned. Ian Norton, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but he's the attorney at, he's legal counsel at Ocean. So some people may disregard his opinion. I'm going to put it here anyway. I think he's completely right, and I think he's on the honest side of this debate. He's responding to Joe Carlasari here. I think, hey Joe, I respect your view, but what you're describing largely is the current state of Bitcoin. While illicit material on-chain isn't really cash, it is non-contiguous, largely de minimis, and the result of a known bug exploit, not the intended purpose of Bitcoin, which as stated is P2P money. The problem with version 30, of course, for the first time in Bitcoin's history, developers have jumped the shark, removing filters altogether and depreciating, I think he means deprecating, the ability for node runners to modify or control their own settings. Unlike civil law where you swim, the risk of CP on-chain is a criminal law issue in the US, which turns mostly on intent. Post-version 30 spam will flood the network, the gatekeeping has been removed, and developers will no longer be able to claim a lack of knowledge or intent because they've been warned. Node runners can't filter or choose to fight back after deprecation of configurability. Too many devs are deliberately creating a data storage system with the ability to stuff illicit material, porn, state secrets, etc. in contiguous large files, in other words, the OpReturn, that would not require special software or other tools to view. This type intent is part of the same fight raging with Tornado and Samurai over money laundering. Samurai folded and pled guilty. Thankfully, Tornado is still fighting back. But worse still, illicit material is not a specific intent crime, i.e. to harm the child. The storage or transmission is a general intent crime, which means you did merely intend to store it or intend or relay it. This is a huge attack vector for open source developers in the US and most other global jurisdictions, and unprecedented in the ignorance in which devs are so cavalierly opening the door to serious harm instead of quote unquote maintaining the peer-to-peer network as money. That's what they should be doing. They should be doing basic maintenance, and they shouldn't be pushing this through when they've already lost 20% of the network to naught. Step out of the ivory tower of civil law and visit your colleagues doing criminal defense. Then we'll talk. Ian goes on to write here, most quote-unquote lawyers in the Bitcoin space are paper warriors who specialize in SEC and securities nonsense. Try polling any serious trial attorney, state or federal, or prosecutor, and you'll get a far different result and risk profile. I put the status quo risk, I think he's talking here about Bitcoin Core devs being sued. I put the status quo risk at less than 1%, non-zero but very low. This risk is at least 10 to 20x higher if Bitcoin opens the door to file storage as proposed by version 30. There are many smart people who are now aware of these risks and have been trying to warn other people of the risks. So if we take a look at who is not going to be upgrading to version 30, Bitcoin Core version 30, Samson Mao writing here, I will not be running Bitcoin Core version 30. Jimmy Song saying why I won't be upgrading to Bitcoin Core version 30. I think he's going to be sticking on 29 or 29.1. Parker Lewis writing here, I would not update to Bitcoin Core version 30. It was number one, it was never a debate. A decision was made. Exactly true. Number two, users are not stakeholders. Number three, devs do not understand limits of own wisdom. Number four, it's not a solution to a problem. Number five, risk of unintended consequences. Number six, no incentive to relay large op returns. And then there's Nick Szabo. He writes, as a hopefully temporary measure, run knots. I strongly recommend not upgrading to core version 30. Beauty on in responding to Nick Szabo's post there, writing, this is so manifestly the obvious answer to this impasse, it bears repeating. The fact of the matter is that Core cannot control what Bitcoin is because the people who run the nodes determine that. If no one runs Core 30 is dead and Bitcoin lives. The Szabo option, as he's calling it, is clearly the most prudent, rational, and logical way forward to simply refrain from upgrading until at least the following things happen at a minimum. Number one, several multi-top-tier law firms conduct multi-jurisdiction legal reviews of the fall of liabilities and risk caused by running Core 30 for businesses and individuals, and the legal consequences of the inevitable contamination of the chain of blocks by illegal porn and other files. Number two, an independently run, complete technical and procedural review of who does what in Core and the conditions that grant commit access, and every other contributory process detailing who exactly is in charge. It'd be really nice to know, for example, who locked and unlocked the GitHub and all that funny business earlier this year. How and who put them in charge, going back to Beauty on, and a formal inquiry detailing the appalling lack of review, oversight, scrutiny, and blatantly missing checkpoints that allowed this debacle to come to pass. NASA and others have have a lot of experience in this. Obviously, this cannot be enforced, but if anyone in Core wants trust to be restored in its releases and the processes that lead to them, I suggest that they do this. Abandon the absurd idea of self-regulation, which has utterly failed, and eagerly engage a process like this. Otherwise, no one in their right mind should trust them ever again for threatening this apocalyptically negative outcome. And certainly no Wall Street actor, were they to find out about all of this, would tolerate it. Number three on the list, it all calms down. If Core refrains from releasing 30, this will be a signal that, in fact, they really are acting as proper stewards of the reference client and would repair their power and restore some of their reputation. If, on the other hand, they stubbornly charge forward and then the inevitable contamination happens, the legacy of Core will be the filth their change caused and left behind in the chain of blocks forever. But they might not care about this at all because, quote unquote, in the long run, we're all dead. Maybe they're just Keynesians. Finally, the reason we want to move beyond this too, so we can all get on with our lives. As Allison writes here, make Matt Cratter videos fun again, kill Core 30. And I respond, yes, please. I want to go back to the good old days too. This has been such a drain of energy. This has been such an attack on the network, what Core has done by moving forward with this completely unnecessary update. And they've really committed probably the biggest unforced error here in Bitcoin history. So I'm begging Core, do the right thing. We're less than 24 hours here from the possible release. Please hold off on this. Do some more legal due diligence, and let's all back down from the cliff. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video, and let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.